Hi dicom, this is Ray with a response to your video, What is Tolerance? I'm glad you brought up this subject because I unwittingly played a role in getting the ball rolling in this area. Let me explain. Several years ago I worked for AT&T. It's a very good company to work for in the 80s. They were very high on education. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey, they sent every employee to a one-week seminar on his 7 habits. They would pay for individuals' educational costs. They paid for my college degree, actually. So they were a good company to work for. Well, in the 80s, diversity hit the scene. And being a global company, they brought in the teachings or the learnings from diversity into the company, and every employee was required to attend diversity training. At the time, I thought it was a good idea. If you looked at the board of directors for most corporations, you'd have all white men, possibly a woman being the human resource director, and maybe one person of color or an Asian. It wasn't really diverse at all, and for whatever reason. So when diversity training first came onto the scene, I embraced it. I thought it was a good idea. And I participated in not only being trained as a normal employee on what diversity meant, but also further training to go out and teach it or head small groups, have discussions. Well, like most good ideas, as time went on, it became what it is today. And by that I mean each side, the left, the right, use it to their own advantage until diversity, or as you say, tolerance, which was a tenet of diversity training, doesn't exist. For instance, the right is intolerant of anyone who is against the war. They're branded as unpatriotic, against the troops, so on and so forth. And the left is no better because they seem to be intolerant of any perceived intolerance. So it no longer means what it was intended to mean. So I can understand the frustration that people have when faced with it. You're right about the talking heads. They use it to shout down individuals who have a different perspective. and that's not right. So this is where we are, and I agree, it is a problem. One example of how tolerance has become intolerance occurred while I was still with AT&T. There was a monthly, I think it was monthly, it might have been quarterly, internal newsletter. It was quite a production. I mean, it rivaled a small magazine, and it did a pretty good job. It was a pretty interesting read. Well, in any case, in one edition, they had a map of the world. And for each of the larger countries, they had an animal representing that country. And they happened to choose a monkey or an ape for Africa. As you can imagine, that caused quite a stir. As it turned out, that graphic had been outsourced and somehow approved by the management within AT&T, and it got through. Now, I don't know what was the intent of the artist who put together the graphic, and it really doesn't matter what his intentions were. The point to this story is that the outrage was so intense that people lost their jobs and the publication was shut down. that was an intolerant overreaction to something that, yes, some people might have found hurtful, but there had to be a middle ground in there somewhere. It just didn't make sense to do what they did based on that one graphic. I was never crazy about the word tolerance used in this regard anyway. Most people have a negative connotation to that word, such as, you tolerate noisy neighbors, or you tolerate unruly children, which you shouldn't, but most of us do. You tolerate bad manners. So just in general, it just means, putting up with. I don't know what the answer is, but I do know that the idea of tolerance, of people understanding each other's points of view, is worthwhile and should continue in some capacity. Take care.